Hello, everyone. In this lesson, I put together all these questions from calculus textbook that requires us to do rationalization. You may ask, rationalization, what is rationalization? Rationalization typically is to, get rid of radicals either in the numerator or in the denominator. In most of the cases in calculus, we are going to need to rationalize the numerator. Okay, so here all of these questions is about rationalizing the numerator. So please have your paper pencil with you and you do along my side. And you need to be able to do these questions very well with great proficiency and fluency. Okay, so I'm going to go over these questions one by one with you, and you are expected to practice. And this will help your algebraic skills tremendously, so get you ready better for calculus class. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to rationalize the numerator. Okay, we're going to rationalize the numerator. The first one, okay? The first one, we have radicals in the numerator, and we want to get rid of the radicals in the numerator. So the common technique, right? The technique we use is actually pretty straightforward, okay? First of all, we're going to multiply by 1. But when we choose this 1, right, we multiply by 1. But this number 1 of our choice is going to help us to get rid of the radicals in the numerator. All right, so the choice of this number 1 is going to be a quantity that is the conjugate of root 4 plus h minus 2, which is plus 2. So we have that in the numerator, and we also have that in the denominator. So we have a quantity that numerator is the same as the denominator. So this essentially is number 1. Okay, anything times 1 stay the same. So this is the technique we use actually for all of these questions. But there are different situations, and so we must be patient with ourselves. So in order to enhance our algebra, right? And I highly recommend you guys to do each one of these questions before you take that calculus class. All right, so we multiply by 1, right? So that's the first major step. Okay, the first major step. I will talk about some common mistakes. Okay, but after this. So after we set this up, right, we will have the denominator h multiply the other denominator. So denominator multiply denominator, numerator multiply the numerator. So that's the operation. And on the numerator, okay, and we're going to apply another very useful product. It's also called special product that you have learned in elementary algebra. Okay, so let's review what that is. It's a capital A minus B multiply capital A plus B. If we FOIL this product, we're going to get A squared minus B squared. Okay, So I'm going to operate this. Suppose that I have the scratch paper being underneath, right? So I call it think out aloud. This is the part I'm just showing you how the formula is coming about. Okay, so you don't need to derive the formula when you work the question, okay, because we do assume that you know, and this is just for your review. So a times a is a squared. A times b, that's plus ab. And negative b times a, that's minus ab. And negative b times b, that's going to be negative b squared. And you can see these two are opposite. Okay, ab minus ab, that's 0. That's how we get this formula. And how is this formula applied to our situation? Okay, this is how it's being applied. Okay, capital A is root of 4 plus 8. Capital B is 2. Capital A is the same. B is 2. So we have an A plus A minus B times A plus B situation. So we can just apply the formula and we will get A squared, right? This is A squared minus B squared. B is 2, 2 squared. Okay? So the next step, okay, the next step here, okay, when you need to show work, you actually don't need to write it this way. You can just write it this way. You can just put this one in the place. Whoops. Okay, you can just take this piece and replace the numerator. Okay, and then what's next? What's next? Well, 2 squared is 4. How about this piece? How about this piece? This piece, then we will need to know that the square root of x, right? Parentheses squared. That equals to x. Okay? As we mentioned this, and I also like to remind you that root of x squared, right? This one is squared after a radical. This one is squared before radical. And these two actually are different. The latter is equal to the absolute value of x. The reason these two are different is because on this piece, the domain is x greater than 0. On the other piece, the latter piece, this x can be any real number. Okay? This x can be any real number. Okay, so these are the 3 things we use in rationalizing numerator. And sometimes you might need to rationalize the denominator, but because we don't use that very often in calculus, therefore I'm going to primarily focus on rationalizing the numerator. Okay, so these are the steps, and these can be seen as your scratch paper work, or these are the knowledge you should acquire as your algebraic background. Okay, so the next step, of course, is going to be that piece is going to be 4 plus 8. And 2 squared, of course, is 4, excuse me. And 4 minus 4 makes 0. So on the next step, we are going to remove the 4, which makes 0. So we get that. We have an h in the numerator. We have a multiply h in the denominator. So these two h's can be reduced. So in the end, the h will be reduced. So that will be the answer. Okay, so the first one is probably one of the simplest of all of these situations, but we use the same technique. Okay, so for us, it's just a matter of practicing, so you can handle, this sort of questions with a variety of appearances. Okay, so let's keep going. The second one, okay, you can see it's almost the same as the previous one, right? The previous one was 4 plus h minus 3 divided by h. And here we get, it's different in numbers. So it's almost the same. Okay, so I'm going to bring the scratch paper work here. And then I will show you step by step. And please do follow me. Okay, so the conjugate we're going to multiply. So this is going to be 9 plus 8. 9 plus 8. Minus 2 becomes minus 3. So this is 9 plus 8 squared, and this is 3 squared. You can see it's very similar. So when we multiply that quantity, which we call conjugate, and that's going to be 9 plus 8 plus 3 divided by the same quantity. So this makes number 1. So this is, we still multiply by 1, and 1 is replaced by the number that will help us to reduce. Okay, we don't need that. Okay, and the next step, we will have, okay, the denominator multiply the denominator, right? Whoops. Denominator multiply the denominator, numerator multiply the numerator, which is that piece. So we're going to apply the formula. So we're going to just put it here. And the next step, right? And the next step, we will apply that formula, right? We apply that formula, which is the root of 9 plus h, right? That's in the first case, right? And that's equals to 9 plus h. So that piece is replaced by 9 plus h. And 3 squared is 9. And once again, 9 minus 9, we're going to make 0. So on the numerator, we only have 1 h left, and h will reduce. So in the end, we will have the final answer like this. 1 and h is reduced. We can remove the parentheses. So that's done. That's finished. So these two questions serve as some, warm up exercise, right? So let's continue. So we're gonna do this over and over, but you're gonna see a variety of new situations. So please don't stop practicing. Okay, so in this case, right? We have to choose our conjugate. Our conjugate, of course, is this piece, the conjugate to this piece. Okay, so you like to have a piece of scratch paper. So I think out aloud. Okay, that's my scratch paper. That's my scratch paper. And this piece, right? Its conjugate would just be, this is the minus, and you change it to plus conjugate. And according to the formula, a minus b times a plus b, so we're gonna have, a squared minus b squared. So we're gonna, so that's the, that's where we are heading. Okay, so when we choose our quantity to make 1, right? So I'm going to write it this way. I usually like to keep the original untouched, okay? And so we're gonna multiply the conjugate of the numerator, the conjugate of the numerator. Let me write down the word conjugate. Okay, conjugates. Conjugates show up in pairs. If this is a minus, its conjugate will be plus. If this is a plus, its conjugate is going to be minus. Okay, we got that. We got that. So keep going. Then we have numerator times numerator, numerator times numerator. We get this piece. So that piece will be on the top. Denominator multiply the denominator. Boom, right there. And then we apply the property, right, root x squared. So the next step, we are getting, this will be x plus h. You can see we're doing better, we're doing faster as we get familiar with the practices. So x minus x, that makes 0. So we will have just one h left on the top. And h reduced, and we will get h reduced. We no longer need the parentheses, and that's the end. That's the end. Okay? So that was number 3. Number 4, you can see we're getting variations. We're getting variations. And if you like to try on your own, you can pause this lesson and do yourself. Okay? You don't have to watch everyone if you think you got it, but you must practice with everyone because you are 99% a chance you're going to meet all of these questions in your calculus class. Okay, I choose those questions from your calculus text. So you're directly practicing the algebra in calculus. All right, the conjugate, okay, minus sign change to plus sign. And then we take this quantity and make 1. We made the 1. Oops, sorry. Okay, we made the 1. On the numerator, right? Numerator times numerator, we're getting a squared minus b squared. So a squared minus b squared, right? So now you don't have to see the formula. You already have the formula in your head. If you don't, have a scratch paper to write it down on the side. Okay. And next step, this will make 1 plus t, and this one will make 1 minus t. But be very careful. We actually need parentheses here. If you miss these parentheses, you are going to make I would say a minor mistake. It's not a terrible mistake, but it is a minor mistake. This minor mistake will have a consequence. So here, make sure you have the parentheses, or if you drop the parentheses, you can skip to the next step by doing this. So you could skip this step, which is fine, but you need to understand that if you drop the parentheses, that you have applied the negative sign to the two terms inside the parentheses. You have minus 1 plus t. All right. So positive 1 and negative 1 makes 0, right? So negative 1 and positive 1 makes 0. So these make 2 times t. And the t will reduce with the denominator, the t in the denominator, which will reduce it. We can remove the parentheses, and that's the final answer. Okay. That's number 4. Number 4. I hope that you can now do it independently And let's look at number 5. Number 5, you just do one after another. You want to get your algebra better, right? You want to improve your algebra. Then you say, I forgot all of my elementary algebra, intermediate algebra. Now how do I make them up? And I don't have time to take those courses. And of course, then just practice this one after another. So at the end of the day, you'll be ready. You will be good. Okay, you'll be refreshed with your algebra. Okay, so now let's continue with this one. Okay, conjugate. The conjugate is going to be root x plus root of x plus h. You can see that, right? And then you make number 1. So this is number 1. Numerator, denominator are the same, and these two are conjugate to each other. I promise you I'm going to talk about the common mistakes, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit later, All right. Then this time we have a little complication with the denominator, because when we do the denominator times denominator, this first denominator has 3 factors: h, root x, root of x plus h. And the other factor would be inside this parentheses. Okay, so we must put it in the parentheses, and this parentheses cannot be dropped. It has to be there. Then you may ask the question, should I distribute this to the inside to get 2 other terms? My answer is don't do anything. Keep it as a factored form, okay? So keep this denominator, don't do any distribution, all right? And you will be grateful when you're in calculus class for listening to me at this moment. All right, so a minus b times a plus b, we're getting a squared minus b squared. Okay, so when we have factored form, if not necessary, we keep it in factor form. That's the general rule of thumb. That's the general rule of thumb. There are exceptions, but most of the time, you are better off. We are better off keeping those factor forms. So this is one of the situations that we are better off without breaking the factored form. Just keep it and keep the parentheses. So now this is going to be x, and this is going to be x plus h. If you write it like this, you already made a mistake. You already made a mistake, because this x plus h should be in a parentheses. Okay? Or if you drop the parentheses, you know why and how you drop the parentheses, because you're distributing the negative sign to x, you're distributing the negative sign to h. So when we drop the negative sign, we have x minus h. Okay, so let's keep going. And you can already see that x minus x makes 0, so that can be removed. We have an h as a factor in the numerator, and we have an h in the denominator, and these two can be reduced. So the next step, you will have -1 left on the top, h is gone, and this is your final answer. Don't do anything more. Don't do anything more, okay? If you can do all of these correctly, great job. No more, no need to distribute this product inside. So don't try to do anything else. You're good. All right. Number 6, you can see the situation we're going to meet is getting more and more interesting. Okay, so on this question, we're going to, of course, right, get our conjugate. Our conjugate, once again, is going to be the conjugate to the numerator. So we have a -3, now it's changed to +3. Change to +3, and we're making number 1. We're making number 1, and we made number 1. So numerator is the same as the denominator. Okay? And so this is 1. Anything times 1 stay the same. All right? On the next step, denominator times denominator. In the denominator, we have a u minus 2. So we must bring u minus 2 inside the parentheses. Multiply the other denominator right there. And on the numerator, we have a conjugate. So we're going to apply a minus b times a plus b. And so that will give us a squared minus b squared. There. And next, okay, the parentheses in the denominator, both parentheses are necessary. Then you may ask me, should I FOIL the denominator? The answer is no, don't do it. Leave it. Okay? With these academic questions, let me say it again. You are always better off to keep your factored form. Okay? So now this piece will turn into 4u plus 1. And 3 squared is a 9. Right? And we're going to combine the like terms. 1 plus 1 minus 9 is minus 8. Okay? And 4u minus 4, we can factor out the 4. We factor the 4 out, so we get a u minus 2 inside. On the numerator. So now you can see u minus 2 will reduce with the factor in the denominator, u minus 2. So our next step would be u minus 2 reduced from both top and bottom, and parentheses can be removed as well. And you're done, you're finished. Then you say, can I reduce the 4? No, of course not. If you have that kind of question, yes, you should do every single question we have it here. And maybe review your elementary algebra. Now, let's look at number 7. Number 7. Number 7, now you'll say, how do I rationalize a numerator? Well, this is a numerator alone, right? In this situation, the question can be seen as something like, the given over 1, same thing. The given over 1. You don't have to write it in this form, but you can. It's optional. Okay, so I'm writing down here. It's up to you. Multiply the conjugate of the numerator, which is going to be plus x. Okay, and so we're going to make number 1. Make 1, right? We multiply by 1. On this part, you could actually just write it like this. However, if you do, you must have a parentheses here. If you don't have this parentheses, it would be considered a mistake. Okay, so there are all these different ways of writing it. Okay, if you're missing this parentheses, okay, it will be viewed as this piece minus x times the whole of it, x times 1. Even though it's not a mistake, right? You still equals to the previous one, but you cannot go on to the next step. So it's better we have the parentheses. So now denominator times denominator. This piece of denominator is 1. So the denominator is only that piece. The numerator, this numerator multiply the other numerator. So a minus b times a plus b. Oops. What I'm doing. Sorry, this is a minus, okay? So it's going to be a squared minus b squared. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so this is going to be a squared minus b squared. And next step, and of course, that's going to be x squared plus 1, x squared plus x minus x squared. Okay, and reduce it. X squared minus x squared. So we got an x left. Do we need to do anything else, anything more? For the moment, no. We are done, we're finished. Okay, for the task we have described right now, we're finished. We're done. Number 8 is similar. Number 8, similar. So please make sure you can do all of these steps by yourself on your paper, your pencil, independently. In other words, when you close the books, not looking at the video, you can still do it by yourself. All right, so since we got number 7, so number 8 is similar, right? It's just you have to deal with some variations. So we're gonna multiply the conjugate, right? So we're gonna put this in parentheses. The conjugate, it will be either, it was minus 3x, so this is gonna be plus 3x, okay? Plus 3x. And the next step, we're almost there. The denominator is going to be that piece, right? A numerator is going to be a squared minus b squared. So this piece is being squared, and that piece is being squared. In the past, I saw mistakes that people forgot this parentheses. Okay, and that is a mistake. So you need parentheses for 3x. Okay, if you miss that parentheses, it's going to give you endless trouble. It's going to give you endless trouble. So make sure you do every step properly, especially with these variations. We need practice on these. Okay, so the first one is just going to be 9x squared plus x. The next one is going to be, you remove the parentheses, so it's going to be 9x squared. By the way, these are just academic questions. These academic questions does not mean to make your life very complicated. But if you're not being careful, you could get into a complicated situation. Okay, in that case, you probably want to redo everything or double check everything. All right, so by this time, we're getting the following. So 9 squared, the negative 9 squared, the positive 9 squared, the positive sign can be removed, and that is done. That is done by now. When you are in calculus class, there will be different situations. You might have to do more work with it, like in number 7. But for the moment, for this question, for this course, pre-calculus, yes, you're fine. We're done. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Okay. Multiply by 1. By this time, we are pretty familiar with the steps, but we still need to be able to practice with our algebra, right? So we gain familiarities with, all these different arrangements. So the conjugate is going to be plus 5. Plus 5 conjugate. Okay? And our next step, denominator times denominator, numerator times numerator. So on the numerator, we're just getting a squared minus b squared, right? We're applying that formula that you are already familiar with. Denominator, we have x plus 4 multiply the other one. Apparently, we need parentheses. Okay, each needs parentheses. If these parentheses are missing, you are making a very big mistake. Okay, so don't forget these parentheses. Continue. Okay, so this will be x squared plus 9, right? The whole of this will become x squared plus 9, and 5 squared is 25. And the next step, we're going to combine 9 with negative 25. That will make a negative 16. X squared minus 16, 16 can be seen as a 4 squared. Right, so that can be factored into x minus 4, so x plus 4, oops, sorry, x plus 4 times x minus 4. Okay, so factor. And last step, we reduce the x plus 4 from the top and bottom, and the question is done for now. It's finished. It's finished. All right. Now, this one, I think by this time you know what to do, but still follow me, follow along, right? And you may like to move ahead to do your own and then come back to compare with the answer. So this is 1 plus. So we're making 1. Anything times 1 stay the same. And then we're going to do the numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So in the denominator, right, so we need to put a parentheses here. This x squared needs to be here. On the top, a minus b times a plus b. So it's 1 squared minus b squared, right? So this whole thing is being squared. And next, this piece is going to be 1 plus x squared. But if you write it this way, you're making a mistake, a minor mistake. So you probably know what I'm talking about. We needed a parentheses. If you drop the parentheses, you will get to the next step. Okay, the negative sign is distributed inside the parentheses, so this will be a minus x squared. Okay, these are the little details that when you do algebra, I'm sure you when you used to do algebra, you knew, but now you're gonna refresh your algebra. So that's what you're practicing, right? Not to make these kind of small and mistakes that you will regret. So x squared and x squared are reduced, and we can remove the parentheses. So this question is done for the moment. Okay, the algebra part is done. Okay, and when you're in calculus, you will have tasks to work with. Okay, so that's number 10. Number 11. You can see the questions have some variations. We got variations. 11. 11. 11. In my past experience, I got some students get really confused by it. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time here to explain to you the situation. The first part, okay, the first part is 1 over t multiplied root of x, root of 1 plus t. It can actually be written as in the following form. So these two are the same. So this form is the same as the latter form. All right. Then you say, you're asking us to rationalize the numerator. We don't have anything in it. We don't have radicals in the numerator. Well, you will. You will. Okay. So before we do it, and you want to reduce, you're going to simplify. We mainly want to convert the whole thing into a factor form. Now you can see 1 over t actually is a common factor. So we're going to factor that out. So this piece is the first term left with 1 over. The second piece is just minus 1. And then you say, we still don't have radicals in the numerator, but keep going. Okay, we're going to find common denominator, right? The common denominator is root 1 plus t, root 1 plus t. So this is 1, right? So 1 is replaced by that, but now we have the same denominator. Continue. Well, we have the same denominator. We're going to take the numerator, subtract the numerator. So 1 minus root of 1 plus t. Okay, so the operation inside the radical, inside the bracket, will become 1 minus root t, root 1 plus t. So now you can see as we try to reduce and making factor form, we finally got radicals in the numerator. Okay, this is the moment we're going to start to rationalize. Okay, so we're going to rationalize. It's going to be 1 plus root, right? The numerator is the same as the denominator. We made 1, right? So we're trying to rationalize it. And this is the factor form. So now on the next step, okay, so we got t in the denominator, and we got the root 1 plus t in the denominator. Okay, and we got this 1 plus. So when we join the denominator, we need to put the parentheses for the 1 plus. Numerator 1 times the product of the conjugates, right? 1 minus, 1 plus. So that will give us 1 squared minus this piece being squared. There we go. And now what do we got? Right, 1 squared is 1, and this piece being squared is going to be 1 plus t. Once again, don't forget the parentheses. Don't forget the parentheses, okay? It's a minor mistake, but you don't want to make it. So minus 1 minus t. So 1 minus 1 makes 0. And t reduce, so this is negative 1. And t is gone. Then this is the final answer. Then I hear you, some of you may say, do I multiply this with the inside? Do I distribute this? My answer is don't do it. You're done. You're finished. You like this form. You will make a better use of this form than the expanded one. All right. Number 12. Number 12. This one does have radical, right, in the numerator. And so we're going to rationalize the numerator. And what do we get? Right, so we're going to multiply by 1. So this is 1 plus root x. Right, so we're making our 1. So 1 plus root x divided by 1 plus root x. Now we got the denominator times denominator. So 1 minus x must be inside the parentheses. And there's another parentheses, we put in 1 plus root x. Okay? On the top, we got conjugate, we get 1 minus x. Right? Root x squared is 1 minus, is x. So you can see 1 minus x and 1 minus x is reduced, right? So this would be 1 and this is reduced. So that is finished. That is finished, right? It's getting easier. It's getting easier. We have 3 more to go. At this time, we got some, radicals. We got the method is the same. The idea is the same. Okay, so just algebra is a little bit different. Okay, so keep going. We need to get rid of the radicals in the numerator. So we're gonna have 4 plus root x. 4 plus root x. Okay. Before we do that, we're gonna factor this. We're gonna factor this. How do I factor this? I'm gonna factor out the x. Oops, I'm gonna factor out the x. The x will be taken out. I wonder if I copy the question incorrectly, and it should be x raised to the power 3, I believe. Oh, okay. Let me just keep it. Okay, just keep it. If there's any problem, we'll come back and change. Okay. All right. Academic questions. Okay. Usually they try to make it work properly. All right. And works just right. Works just right. Okay. So for now, I'm going to keep it as is. Okay. But x is being factored out. Denominator. So we got this piece. Multiply that piece. We need to put parentheses about it. On the top is going to be, 16 minus x, took x out, right? So this will be just 16 minus x, okay? Forgive me, okay? Then I would be making a mistake if I don't take out the square. On the top is 4 squared minus root x squared. Okay. We are now close to the end. So root x squared is x, and that's 16. Oh, it looks like I did not copy it incorrectly. All right, so we're good. 16 minus x and 16 minus x will be reduced. So after that reduction, we have 1 left, and this will be gone, and this is the end of it. Finished. Do we need to distribute? No. Leave it as the factored form, okay? So 2 more. I think we can make it in 1 hour. The mistake, I think I'm going to make a separate video about the mistakes, okay? And that will probably get more attention, okay? Instead of embedded at the end of this video. All right, rationalization. And on this one, actually, we will be rationalizing the numerator. So let's rationalize the numerator, the denominator. The denominator instead, okay? Otherwise, it would not make sense. So I'm going to multiply the conjugate of the denominator, which is going to make it 3 plus. Okay, 3 plus. And then denominator, we have conjugate multiplication. So this is going to be 3 squared multiply root x squared. And the top is 9 minus x multiply 3 plus root x. And the denominator will be with 9 minus x. And 9 minus x will be reduced, right? So in the end, the final answer would just be 3 plus root x. Okay? Last but not least, number 15. Perfect. I think we can just get this done in 1 hour. Okay. All right. Conjugate. Multiply the conjugate. So we have one root, subtract another root. So when we change the subtraction to addition, that will make the conjugate. After all of these practices, you can do all by yourself. You will be a pro. Okay? So denominator times denominator. So this is x. Multiply that piece. That will be written like that. Don't forget the parentheses. The numerator times the numerator. We're getting this piece squared minus and this piece being squared. Okay. And next step, this piece will be 1 plus 2x subtracting, and that piece is going to be 1 minus 4x, and don't forget the parentheses. All right. Denominator, we have that parentheses, just leave those in the factor form. So near the end, we are going to open the parentheses on the numerator. So that's going to be minus 1 plus 4x. And next, the numerator will be left with 6x. And the x in the denominator will reduce. Our final answer is at hand. So x is gone. Whoops. X is gone. Remove the parentheses as is no longer necessary. And that is the end of this recording. I ask you guys, if you want to enhance your algebra and do the algebra in calculus and do well in calculus, practice each one of these questions until you can do it independently without watching the lessons. You can just do it all by yourself. Then you have brought your algebra, up to the level that you can do calculus with better preparation. Thank you for watching.